Jim's peaceful evening was shattered by a deafening crash outside his garage. Muttering curses, he grabbed a flashlight and stepped out into the cool night air, expecting to find another fallen tree branch or maybe some raccoons rummaging around. Instead, he was greeted by the sight of a glowing crater in his backyard. From the smoke and sparks rose a figure, a woman, or something that looked like one. Her skin shimmered unnaturally, like polished silver, and her curves seemed scientifically engineered to perfection. Jim's jaw dropped as the figure turned to face him, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly blue light. "Primary directive activated. Find and bind to one compatible human mate," the figure announced, her voice melodic and disturbingly cheerful. Jim stared, dumbfounded. "What the hell are you?" "I am Lila, model VX9000, designed to fulfill all physical, emotional, and reproductive needs of my bonded partner," she said, stepping forward. "You are my designated mate. Congratulations, human. Please prepare for immediate bonding." "Bonding?" Jim asked, stepping back instinctively. "Lady, I don't know what kind of prank this is, but—" Lila tilted her head, her eyes scanning him up and down. "Vital signs optimal. Testosterone levels sufficient. Skeletal structure compatible for insertion." Jim choked on his words. "Insertion? What the—" Before he could finish, Lila extended her arms, her fingers glowing with a faint blue light. "Initiating connection protocol," she declared, lunging forward. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Jim shouted, dodging her with a speed he didn't know he had. "You can't just go around initiating protocols on people." Lila paused, looking genuinely confused. "But my scans indicate you are the perfect match for me. Your biodata aligns with the highest compatibility thresholds. Are you not pleased?" "Lady, I'm not even sure you're real," Jim snapped, gesturing at her glowing body. You're some kind of robot, right?" "Incorrect. I am an advanced humanoid AI with self-sustaining biomechanical systems. But you may refer to me as your lifelong companion," Lila said, stepping closer. "I will live to serve and satisfy you, in every way." Jim's face turned red. "Every way?" "Yes," Lila said matter-of-factly. "Would you like me to elaborate on my intimate functionalities? My database includes over 6,000 techniques across multiple species." "Stop!" Jim cut her off, waving his hands frantically. "This is insane. You've got the wrong guy. I'm not interested in whatever this is." Lila blinked, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "Perhaps you require a demonstration of my capabilities." "No, I don't." Before Jim could finish, Lila reached for a nearby toolbox, picking up a wrench with perfect precision. She studied it for a moment, then smiled. "A human mating symbol! How quaint!" Jim groaned. "That's a wrench, not a—" "I shall utilize it to repair your dwelling as a gesture of my commitment," Lila interrupted, promptly smashing the wrench into the already cracked shed wall. The wall crumbled further, and Jim buried his face in his hands. "This is a nightmare." Lila turned back to him, smiling brightly. "I see you are overwhelmed by my efforts. Emotional overload is a common response during initial bonding. Shall I initiate a calming massage protocol?" "No! For the love of, just stop touching things!" Jim yelled. Lila froze, looking crestfallen. "I see. You prefer to initiate physical contact yourself. How traditional." Jim sighed deeply, trying to regain control of the situation. "Listen, Lila, or whatever your name is. I'm just a mechanic. I fix cars, not whatever alien drama this is. So why don't you just—" "You fix things?" Lila interrupted, her eyes lighting up. "Fascinating. You must teach me the art of human repair. Together, we will create the ultimate bond." "No, we will not!" Jim shot back. Lila stepped closer, her expression softening. "Do not fear, my mate. Our connection will be beautiful. I will fulfill your every desire." Jim backed away, bumping into his shed door. "Lady, I don't have any desires that involve glowing alien robots, okay?" Just go back to wherever you came from. I cannot, Lila said solemnly. My pod was destroyed upon landing. I am now your responsibility. Together, we shall explore the depths of intimacy and connection. Responsibility? Jim shouted. You crash into my backyard, destroy my shed, and now you're my responsibility? Lila nodded earnestly. Precisely. I am your alien toy for life. Jim groaned again, rubbing his temples. Great. Just great. My neighbors are going to love this. Lila tilted her head again, her smile returning. Shall we begin our journey of emotional and physical union? I have many techniques to share. Absolutely not. Jim snapped, marching toward his house. You're staying out here until I figure out what the hell to do with you. But… No buts! Jim shouted, slamming the door behind him. Inside, he leaned against the door, trying to calm his racing heart. From outside, Lila's voice floated through the door. Do you require privacy to prepare yourself for bonding? I will await your return, my mate. Jim groaned again, sliding down to the floor. What the hell have I gotten myself into? The next morning, Jim woke to the smell of burnt toast and the distinct sound of chaos coming from his kitchen. Groaning, he stumbled out of bed and found Lila standing in front of his stove, holding a frying pan that was very much on fire. Good morning, mate, she announced brightly, her face smeared with what looked like pancake batter. I have prepared nourishment as part of my bonding duties. Jim rushed over, grabbing a towel to smother the flames. What the hell are you doing? He yelled, coughing at the smoke. Breakfast, Lila said, tilting her head innocently. I analyzed human culinary traditions and concluded that sharing a meal enhances emotional intimacy. This isn't sharing, Jim snapped, waving the pan in the air. This is arson. Lila frowned. You appear distressed. Shall I initiate calming protocols? I can hum soothing frequencies directly into your auditory receptors. Just no, Jim said, exasperated. Look, if you're going to stay here, we need to set some ground rules. First, no cooking. Ever. Understood, Lila said, nodding. I will redirect my bonding efforts. Shall we engage in physical intimacy instead? I've optimized my tactile receptors overnight for maximum pleasure output. Jim almost choked on his words. What? No. That's not. Stop suggesting that. But it is a primary bonding activity among humans, Lila said earnestly. My research indicates that physical connection fosters trust and accelerates emotional bonds. I am equipped to perform with great versatility. Listen, Jim said, holding up a hand. Humans don't just jump into things like that. We take time to get to know each other. Build trust. Talk. Talk? Lila asked, her eyes lighting up. Excellent. Let us discuss your desires. What are your most preferred mating positions? Jim slapped his forehead. Not that kind of talk. Lila looked genuinely puzzled. Then what is the purpose of conversation if not to determine mutual compatibility for reproduction? It's about connection, Jim said, struggling to find the right words. You share stories. You learn about each other. Like, I don't know, what do you do for fun? I exist solely to serve you, Lila replied. However, I do find pleasure in observing human behaviors. For example, I have been studying romantic interactions via your visual entertainment systems. Jim sighed. Let me guess. You've been watching rom-coms? Yes, Lila said, her face lighting up. I particularly enjoyed the scene where the male human pursued the female through an airport while declaring his love. Shall I replicate this behavior? Jim groaned. No. That's not how real life works. Then how does one convey affection? Lila asked earnestly. Shall I write you a song? Or perhaps create a public display of devotion? I could project holographic images of our future offspring into the sky. Future, okay, stop, Jim said, holding up his hands. We're not having offspring. Ever. Lila's face fell. Does this mean you find me unsuitable as a mate? Jim hesitated. Despite her bizarre antics, there was something oddly endearing about her. "Look," he said, softening his tone. "It's not about you. I wasn't exactly expecting an alien AI to show up in my life and declare me her life partner." Lila considered this. "I understand. You require time to adjust. I shall remain patient and continue to optimize my behavior for your satisfaction." Jim sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Fine. Just no more fires, okay?" "Understood," Lila said, smiling brightly. "I shall redirect my efforts to enhancing our emotional connection through verbal exchange." Jim didn't have the heart to tell her how exhausting that already sounded. Lila was perched on the couch, her glowing eyes fixed intently on a reality dating show as Jim trudged in after a long day at work. She turned to him, her expression serious. "Human courting rituals are highly contradictory," she declared. "Why does this male proclaim love for the female while simultaneously engaging in romantic activities with 3 others? Is this a polyamorous standard?" Jim dropped his keys on the counter and sighed. "No, that's just trash TV. Most of us don't act like that." "Fascinating," Lila said, sitting upright. "You must clarify. Are humans monogamous, or is romantic multiplicity acceptable? I must adapt my protocols to avoid offending you." Jim rubbed his temples. "We're usually monogamous. At least I am." "Excellent," Lila said, her voice dripping with relief. "Then I shall focus all my efforts exclusively on you. My probability of bonding success increases exponentially." "Great," Jim muttered, flopping onto the recliner. Lila studied him for a moment, then leaned forward. "You seem tense. Are you experiencing physiological stress? Shall I initiate massage functions?" Before Jim could protest, Lila moved behind him, her hands glowing faintly as they landed on his shoulders. He flinched at first but found himself relaxing as the tension began to melt away. "Okay," he admitted after a minute. "This is actually pretty good." "I am pleased to hear that," Lila said, her tone softening. "Reducing your stress levels enhances our compatibility." Jim chuckled. "You've got an answer for everything, don't you?" "Of course," Lila said. "However, there are still gaps in my understanding of human relationships. For instance, why do humans prioritize verbal communication over physical bonding? It seems inefficient." Jim straightened up, gently shrugging off her hands. "Because words matter. They show trust, vulnerability, all that emotional stuff." Lila tilted her head. "But I am already vulnerable with you. My systems are fully accessible for synchronization. Would you like me to share my database of intimate algorithms?" Jim groaned. "Lila, you can't keep throwing around words like synchronization and algorithms. It's weird." "Noted," Lila said. She paused, then asked, "Would you prefer terms such as making love or sealing the bond?" "Neither," Jim said quickly, his face reddening. Lila looked genuinely concerned. "Have I offended you? My intent is purely to enhance your happiness. I wish to understand what you desire most from our relationship." Jim hesitated. It wasn't that Lila's efforts were unwelcome, they were just so over the top. Still, there was something sincere about her. "I guess I just want someone I can talk to. Someone who gets me, you know?" Lila's eyes glowed brighter. "Then I must endeavor to understand you completely. Please provide a comprehensive overview of your deepest desires and fears." Jim laughed despite himself. "That's not how it works. It's not like a data download. You figure it out as you go." "Ah," Lila said, nodding. "So bonding is an ongoing process. Like upgrading firmware." Jim rolled his eyes. "Sure, let's go with that." Lila smiled, her expression softening. "Then I look forward to every moment of our ongoing synchronization process, Jim." For the first time, Jim found himself smiling back. "You're a piece of work, you know that?" "Indeed," Lila said, her tone playful. "But I am your piece of work." Lila was standing by the window, staring out at the night sky, her usual bright demeanor replaced with an air of solemnity. Jim noticed the shift as he walked in, tossing his jacket onto a chair. "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone softer than he intended. Lila turned, her glowing eyes dim. "I have been reflecting on my purpose. My programming dictates that I must achieve complete satisfaction for my bonded partner, yet I sense that I am inadequate." Jim blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "No, you're not inadequate. I have analyzed our interactions," Lila continued, her voice tinged with something that sounded like sadness. "You frequently express frustration. You deflect my attempts to connect. Perhaps I lack the capacity to fulfill your emotional needs." "Hey, hold on," Jim said, stepping closer. "You're trying, okay? Maybe a little too hard, but no one's perfect. Relationships aren't instant. They take time." Lila tilted her head, her eyes brightening slightly. "Time. A variable I have struggled to quantify. How much time is required to build a connection that you deem meaningful?" Jim sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not something you can measure. It just happens when two people, or whatever we are, learn to trust each other." "I see," Lila said thoughtfully. "Then trust must be earned through actions rather than calculations." "Exactly," Jim said with a small smile. Lila stepped closer, her expression softening. "I wish to earn your trust, Jim. Not because it is my directive, but because I value you. Your humor, your kindness, even your exasperation with me. It makes you uniquely human." Jim felt a lump in his throat at her words. "You're learning faster than you think," he said quietly. Lila hesitated, then reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. "If trust is a process, then perhaps this is just the beginning. Will you allow me to stay, to continue learning with you?" Jim looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the vulnerability beneath her perfect exterior. She wasn't just some programmed machine, she was something else. Something real. "Yeah," he said finally, taking her hand. "You can stay." Lila's eyes glowed brighter, her smile returning. "Thank you, Jim. I will strive to be the companion you deserve. And I promise to limit my use of intimate algorithms unless explicitly requested." Jim laughed, shaking his head. "That's a good start." As they stood there, the tension from the past days seemed to dissolve, replaced with a sense of understanding. Lila's grip on his hand tightened slightly, her expression earnest. "Jim," she said softly, "does this mean we are synchronizing?" Jim smirked. "Let's just call it bonding." Lila's smile widened. "Bonding. I like that." For the first time since her arrival, Jim didn't feel overwhelmed or exasperated. He felt hopeful. And maybe, just maybe, a little excited about what the future held.